So here's what she told me. I want my deformed hands to be normal. I want to be able to jog again. By the way, I totally get it, right? I've walked away from a couple health conditions. By the way, let's do the required, let's just call it bullshit. I'm not a doctor. I don't claim to treat anything. I don't claim that this will cure anything, but I do know there's one cause. Anything that has ever shown up in my life, good, bad, or indifferent, always comes down to one cause. So, I'm not a doctor. I'm not diagnosing. I'm not treating. Your life is your responsibility. And when I say your responsibility, it's your ability to respond. And when I say your ability to respond, that doesn't mean be passive. Let's really nail this today, because when I went to the doctor, when I was immigrating here, I imagined living with this woman I love and being a citizen of Australia, except I ran into one problem. To do all that, you got to give them a couple $1,000, rightio, right? Gave life to that. You got to submit to criminal background checks, no problem, right? In 2 countries, that can be a little problematic, especially when you don't leave the country, because you're not allowed to leave the country. I don't know why they do these weird things. They don't make it simple, but we made it happen. And medicals, and I'm a pretty fit guy, especially at the time, doing my walking, doing my talking. I talk my walk and walk my talk. And I go in and I have to wait for a couple hours, right? People watching the news, people who haven't taken a bath, sitting in fluorescent light-lit rooms. Not a fan of this kind of clutter. And by the time they get me in there and they do all that, they say, hey, you've got this thing called extreme hypertension. You're probably going to have a stroke and die, and you've got to go to the doctors. I'm making the story a little short, right? And so I go to the doctors, and they say, you have extreme hypertension, you're going to go on meds. And I said, no, I'm not. Just plain and simple, I copped an attitude. And then I started doing some imagining. And then a couple weeks later, I go back, and I've got normal blood pressure, right? Now, here's the cool thing, guys. We're going to skip to the chase in a lot of this. Am I claiming that I cured blood pressure? I'm claiming that I changed my life, right? I'm just doing what they need me to say. I want you to do what it takes for your life, because I imagined doing what I'm not allowed to do if I had high blood pressure. I'm imagining doing what I couldn't do if I had high blood pressure. By the way, I did the same thing with my elbows. My elbows had this mysterious damage from when I was beat to death. 33 years ago? Right, I was 23 at the time. Wow. 33 years ago, I got beat to death. I was a 23-year-old corrections officer, 4 months on the job, 3 months married, or the other way around. Actually, I think that's how it was. 4 months on the job, 3 months married. And my entire life came to an end, literally and subsequently, because then I got diagnosed with PTSD and life was a living hell. Not only did I have PTSD, I had this mysterious damage in my arms because I put my hands behind my head and my elbows in front of my face so that my elbows would get kicked in instead of my face. I did have a fracture, a suborbital something or another on one cheek and a big black eye on the other. That made no sense to the doctors. It's like, how do you have a black eye on one side and a suborbital fracture on the other with no marks? I said, I live in a weird world, guys. But here's the thing, ready? It was 20 years later, right? I'm in Australia. And 20 plus years later. And I still got that damage. You think I would have cleaned that up? It really didn't bother me much because I didn't do what we do here, which is haul firewood that's heavier than steel. We have firewood that is so freaking dense, it's like as heavy as steel. And I'm hauling it into the house because Victoria and I only have 2 kinds of heat at the time. It's called fireplace and her, right? Fireplace and each other, right? We cuddle and we sit in front of the fire. That's it. And I'm trying to build a kingdom here. And I need to type. I'm doing like 10 articles a day, smoking 30 ciggies a day. I'm in the state of Stephen King, having a blast. And my elbows hurt to the point where I couldn't type. If I can't type, I can't build a kingdom. We didn't have good voice-to-text software back then. That was like 2011-ish, 2010, 2011. And I'd go to bed at night and cry. Because I couldn't carry firewood much and I couldn't type much because I just hurt. And I just did what I teach. Right? I imagined that feeling of accomplishment and satisfied. I imagined typing. Right? I imagined Victoria coming home from lunch and having nailed what I wanted to do that morning and sharing with her my satisfaction and my accomplishment. You notice I didn't imagine anything about the elbows. And at one point I realized they haven't hurt in months, years. I don't even know when they changed, but they did. And I've done it for a couple other things too. Scoliosis, they told me I'd be a cripple. That's the word the doctor used, so I'll use it. Some people don't like that I use that. They send me hate mail. And I said, let me give you the name of the dead doctor. I send him some hate mail too, because that's what he told a little boy. All right? I told him I'm going to be a karate champion. That's what I did. So, if you're getting some gold, you'll notice a couple things. One, we're talking a lot about attitude this week. You get to discover you're bigger than your day. You get to discover that you're bigger than your diagnosis. You get to discover you're bigger than your disease. You're the spark behind the eyes. Number two, you get to do what works. This is where we do crass commercials, because we teach what works and we only teach what works. A lot of people begin with manifestingmasterycourse.com. They used to end there because we had a bunch of other stuff. We still do it, NevilleGoddardStore.com. But manifestingmasterycourse.com. You got to nail those lessons. 15 minutes a day. It's $97 for a 90-day program. We also have little health and healing packs and stuff like that at NevilleGoddardStore.com. But I'm telling you, sooner or later you're going to do manifestingmasterycourse.com. We've had people follow us for 7 years, finally dive in, and then, because one of them just popped up the other day, I looked, when did he subscribe to the free emails? 7 years ago. When did he get manifestingmasterycourse.com? Last month. Why wait? That's my whole thing. I'm not a fan of waiting. So here's the thing. Ready? I loaded this one up with lots of hidden goodies. Mr. 20, but you kept saying you're not a doctor and you're not diagnosing or treating and all that stuff, so that makes me sort of doubt you and doubt this stuff. X, wrong answer. The only person you can doubt is you. Because if it's been done, it's been done. And I can promise you, it's been done. People say to me, I don't believe you can make money online ethically. I say, wow. You don't believe you can. That's the thing. I don't believe I can afford it. I don't believe you can afford not to. Rob Begg used to tell me all the time, because Rob's a good guy. He's done Triple D and so on. He goes, tell him the benefits. Don't stress the price too much. Here's the thing. I want people to notice when they get stressed out over bullshit so they can discover how big they are. And I agree with Rob. What are the benefits? Maybe got a couple thousand success stories in the Law of Attraction by Neville Goddard group. I've got a couple hundred on the websites. I send them out pretty much daily with the email. The thing is, they will never convince you. Only you can convince you by surrendering to the truth about you that sets you free. So what would I imagine? Let's end with that. Ready? I would imagine having had jogged. What would you do if you went jogging and you came home? Would you drink a glass of grapefruit juice? Ooh. See, a lot of people don't like grapefruit juice. Ugh. Right? But could you see your hand holding a glass of something that you're drinking after having had a wonderful jog? Because you'll feel a certain way. You'll feel that accomplished and that satisfied. And can you feel it while you feel the yummy bits that you're drinking down, going down, down, down? All right. Here's what we do. You'll notice I'm not talking about the problem at all. I'm not suggesting you imagine the wish. But if you were taking a drink and your hands weren't deformed and you just had a jog, what would you experience? If you got gold, NevilleGoddardStore.com. We're just getting started. Think about this. If you're getting gold from a podcast, what do you get from the programs and the packages? See ya.